See, how we doing?
Good. How's it going?
Good.
A lot of questions for Chris.
Chris, first off, first year doing the decentralized draft, just wondering your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely different than what we're certainly accustomed to, right? It's you know, I've had the fortune of going to these things for a long time. I think you miss some of the contact, right? It's an exciting week at draft week, but you know, there are advantages to being in your home spot. So whatever they do moving forward, we'll continue to enjoy the process.
Chris, coming out of this weekend, you know, we talked yesterday, you have the cap space, things that you look ahead to free agency. What are the areas of the roster you guys are, you know, really kind of pinpointing, want to take a look at?
Well, I think we're going to look at all options. It may not be free agency. It might be like we'll do our assessments, right, and we'll see where those markets go, right, in terms of the terms and the dollars, and maybe a trade is the better way to go. But you know, it takes two to make those things happen. But I think we've got to look at and forward and on the back end. So we'll look at every avenue possible over the next, whether it's next few days or weeks or months, until we find the right fits.
In recent years, even before this past season, with all the movement that happened, it feels like traditionally, you know, you and Joe kind of lean more toward trades than, I guess, free agency. Is that just coincidence? Is that just not wanting to get into bidding wars? Like, what's the thought process there?
I think every situation is different, right? It just, if you can make a trade that you have the assets that the other team wants, you make a trade. Obviously, the advantage to free agency is you're just giving up money and you're holding on to your assets or your prospects or what have you. So, but you know, like I said, we'll look at all avenues over the next few days and you know, see if we can improve the roster. And you know, we got Bardakov coming over too, so we'd like to see if, you know, some internal guys where they're at in training camp as well. So we'll see what we can do.
With the cap going up, do you anticipate, you know, maybe some more activity this year than the last couple?
I think, you know, if they're still at 95.5, and then there's performance bonus overages that are a lot of, you know, there's a fair number that have that. So there's teams that are under that. So I think it's still relatively, you know, some teams have more space than others, but I think next year is where you'll see the loosening up in a little more dramatic way for more teams. But I think, yeah, it can be an interesting few days and weeks for sure.
Your team has like operated in some version of the LTIR space for 3 years in a row now. Now that you have space, how much have you sort of weighed the pros and cons of trying to keep some of it and bank it for February?
Yeah, there's an opportunity to be a cap accrual team for sure. You know, I don't know, you know, I think we'll be probably nestled to it. I don't know if we'll be millions underneath. I just think we're just going to see where the value is. It's not like we're going in to this offseason and going, we got to be at the cap, you know, for opening day, right? Like if something makes sense and presents itself and it makes sense, you know, we'll obviously have to do the math, but yeah, we'll look to utilize it the full way we can. But you know, I guess the bigger part of your question is we have more clarity on Landeskog, right? Which the last 3 years and a few of those years we didn't know. So you're in that wonky space of, you know, if he comes back and we want him to come back, what do we do and how do you plan for that exactly? And last year Val was suspended, and those are vice-like grips on what you're doing in the summer, because if you don't have escape hatches, sometimes teams will look to exploit you if you have to get in those situations where you have to move money suddenly. So I think the fact that we can count on Gabe, number one, he's a massive part of our team, so that's super exciting that we can, you know, look at that $7 million and go, there's an expectation that he's going to have a normal summer and a training camp and be ready to roll for game one. So that's huge for us in terms of how we attack the next few days, because, you know, the last few years it's been, how do we attack this and get out of it if we, you know, so it's a challenge.
Martin Mitch's, sorry.
With a few coaching vacancies in the organization, can you give us some insight into how some of these roles might be filled, specifically with respect to some of those internal options now behind other NHL benches, what does it look like for assistant and head coach in Loveland and that power play coach role behind the Avs bench?
I think what I can say to you today is that that process is well underway on all three positions. Aaron Schneekloth did a fantastic job for us for many, many years. So super excited for him to join an NHL bench. He's worked hard and deserved that opportunity. And, losing Dan Heinold, definitely big loss there. So those are two significant roles for us in the developmental side. So those interviews are fully underway. There's massive interest in both positions. I think the Eagles organization is a very well-respected organization in the American Hockey League. I think it's a fantastic place to live as well. I'm biased, obviously, but they do a great job. So the interest in both positions has been overwhelming, to be honest. So we have got a lot of great candidates, and that process is ongoing, and similar here with our assistant coach position. So I don't know exactly the timeline, but I would like it to be sooner rather than later that we get those three positions filled.
Martin Necas is eligible for an extension on July 1st. I guess, how confident are you that you guys can reach a deal this summer? And obviously, the real deadline is July 1 of next year, but is there kind of a priority to get it done before the season starts so it doesn't linger?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on any sort of pending contracts or anything like that to date, but we'll chat with a bunch of our guys that are going into the last year in the weeks ahead, and we'll see if we can find common ground. But Marty, played very well for us. He's a dynamic winger, right? I think he was top 20 in the league in scoring, so we're super excited to have him.
Look, Logan, he had the hip surgery last year. Is this the same hip, or is this his other side?
That's the other side.
Chris,
Yep.
sorry, going back, just talk about trades and even the potential coaching hires and things like that. Even Nick was talking about it. We heard a few other guys on TV with the decentralized draft. Was there less activity on your phone this weekend than maybe normal, or past drafts, I should say?
That's a good question. I don't know, maybe less for us because we didn't have picks really, in the first three rounds. Sometimes you get those sort of trade up, trade back type of things. We did have stacked picks with the trade yesterday to be in the third and fourth round, but I don't know if it was the location of the draft being a part of it, but I would say it was more sort of our draft slots type of thing and where our picks were sorted. But the phone was ringing, but it maybe a little less, I would say. Jess?
Not looking for strategic details here, but maybe philosophically, how do you feel about offer sheets as a tool, and has your opinion on that changed after seeing what St. Louis did with Holloway and Broberg last year?
No, my opinion, I think our organization's opinion on it's a part of the CBA, and I think you've got to look at it from, do we have a realistic opportunity to use it, and A, do we have the picks to use it, and then B, are we in a prone position ourselves? As you do that sort of those snapshots well in advance, when it's not like you're doing that tomorrow because of July 1. So I think it's part of the CBA, and I think if teams feel it's going to improve their team, then they're going to give it consideration, and if they don't, then they're not. But we don't look at it as, I think this org before I got here, I think Ryan O'Reilly got one 8-9 years ago. So
After 12 lockout, 12,
yeah.
13.
So I mean, it's used a few times. So I think it's just part of the CBA.
Does that damage relationships with other GMs?
It wouldn't with us, no.
You've spoken in the past how highly the organization thinks of Ilya Nabokov. You guys got him signed. It sounds like he's going to spend another year in the KHL. I guess, are you guys comfortable with that? And I guess, how do you view signing him and burning a year where you may not see much of him this year?
Yep, that's we're super excited to have him signed. I think that's the key, right? We have some certainty that as soon as his year is over, he's coming to North America, and we'll figure out where he goes from there. Obviously, his development path over there has been very, very successful for him. I think Ilya knows that learning English and doing all that over the next 10, 11 months is only going to help him when he does get here. But we are very bullish on him as a goaltender, and his development is of primary importance for us. So our goalie department has done a great job with him and continues to do some development work, and we're super excited to have him signed.
Last year.
Sorry. You mentioned the back end as an area that had a little bit of work to do, and the top pair is obviously pretty set with those top guys in the car and Taves, but from the second pair down, have you identified any qualities in particular that you want represented in the complexion of the rest of the D-Corps?
I think we feel really good with, we're very fortunate obviously to have Taser and Kale and Sammy Gerard and Josh Manson, and Sam Alinsky played very well. Be very curious to see, Keaton Middleton's continued evolvement, as training camp comes. But, whether that's a second pair guy or a number 5 type of guy that can be paired with Malinsky type of thing. I think we have guys that can play decent minutes throughout our lineup, and how Bedsy would like to utilize them. I think obviously if you're just looking at the obvious, to continue the left-right sort of theme, a left shot would go a long way. And if he was, 6'3", 220, he can skate like the wind and pound people, we'd love to find that. But those are kind of unicorns. But I think if we just can see if we can find a way to improve the defense, I don't think we have these sort of specifics. Just does it make us better, and how do we get it? Is it a trade? Is there a UFA that makes us better? And if we can't find it, either of those two, then we're going to have great competition, right, with some of the depth with the Eagles, and then sometimes things shake themselves out in training camp with a different avenue to try and attack it. So we'll definitely look at improving that slot, the one way or the other here over the, whether it's days, weeks, or months.
A few more, Eric.
Last year, I think free agency began before Jonathan Drouin re-signed. Is that a player you guys are still in communication with, or does kind of the Val and Gabe clarity make him a tougher fit?
Yeah, I think we're going to look at, we obviously have a plethora of our own free agents with Kivi Ranta and Jonathan Drouin and Ryan Lindgren, and we'll never say never on any of those guys, but I think we're going to breathe a little bit here and see what shakes off the tree, and and if we decide to see if there's a deal over the next 2 days before July 1 hits and it makes sense, maybe we will. But on Tuesday we'll be looking to improve the team for sure.
There has been a lot of chatter, like during the playoffs, about the way the Panthers play and the whole it's a copycat league, et cetera. And even I think some of that stuff is even pointed out. Your 2022 team is almost an outlier based on some of the recent Stanley Cup champions. Do you feel like the way the team is constructed and the way the team plays can still get back to the level of 2022, or do there need to be changes, either philosophically or roster or makeup wise?
No, I don't think we compare our team to 2022. I think that team was different, was constructed differently, primarily in the cap, just in terms of what the contract Nathan was under and Val was under, and all sorts of different things. We were had guys on lower deals, and I think we can all agree that was a tremendously deep hockey team, and then guys get paid, right, as they become UFAs or have arb rights, and in the flat cap. I think we've talked about this, right, with the challenges of that time and the cap staying flat. It certainly hurt us and other teams in the cycle, but I certainly think this is a really good hockey team right now, today, as it is. I mean, I think we've got top 2 lines that when you look at on paper, some pretty good hockey players, and you look at the back end and what's currently signed. I mean, you start with the Norris Trophy winner, Cale Makar, and some really solid veterans in Tays and Gerard and Manson and Malinsky, what he showed, and it's a pretty good group to start, and then you throw in, I think in net we're in more of a solidified position than we've been maybe in the past, and so I think we feel really good about it. I think obviously the expectations are the expectations, right? If it's cup or bust, there's only one team that wins the cup every year, but this is a good hockey team.
Chris,
Last one.
Odd one for you here. There were some rumors that were going around last night during the first round, tying you guys some pretty big name trades, stuff like that. Nate gets on social media and squashes some of it. Just what's going through your guys' minds as you guys are seeing any of that stuff come across your screens?
Yeah, just, you get texts, and, I think Joe got something, and it's just, you get used to it, right? Like, it's most of the time it's just good fodder, right? It's good chatter. So we don't obviously, I'm not going to comment on rumors or other teams' names, but it makes for good hockey talk, that's for sure.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank
you.